Greetings, everyone. I hope you're having a beautiful and blessed day. If you aren't, just remember, I love you. God loves you. You are so loved. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health, and the reason why is because we are in May, and May is the month of mental health awareness. So I'm going to talk about my journey with mental health, but also just bring you guys a little bit of information and help you to identify mental health, as well as help anybody who may struggle with it, or even if you struggle with it, maybe give you some tips on how you can get help or even help yourself. So let's just jump into this whole thing. When it comes to mental health, it is a wide range of things. All right. When I say a wide range of things, I mean, under the umbrella of mental health, you have clinical depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and etc. There's so much that goes into this. Personally, I struggled with anxiety and depression growing up, and not so much in my youth, but when I was in my teens up until early young adulthood, or whatever you want to call it. I struggled with several things as well, but mainly it was social anxiety, and depression. Reasons why, I've talked about this before on this podcast, of course, but just because I went through some things as a child, got attacked by pit bulls, brutally mauled, ripped apart, and so I had a trauma experience, PTSD, traumatic experience, which birthed PTSD, and then anxiety, and then social anxiety, and then depression as I got older because of so many different reasons. I don't really want to go into it too deeply because it is a very negative topic for me. I mean, I've since grown through it, and I can view it from a neutral perspective, but I don't want to bring that energy to this podcast specifically. So, I'm just expressing what I dealt with, not really going to tell you how or why I dealt with it and all that, because it just doesn't need to go that deep. But basically, it was something I suffered with for about 10 years of my life. I lived a whole decade of my life in depression. The anxiety came on and off, but it was very persistent towards the end of my high school years. So from 17 up until about 20, I struggled with social anxiety and just anxiety in general, to the point where I was on medication for it. I was also on medication for depression for a time, and eventually I got off all of that, and I did what I thought was the best thing, and I surrendered to God and let Him heal me, which was very hard for me, but it was something that I felt that I needed to do because I realized that a lot of the stuff that I was taking as far as medication and counseling, it wasn't truly helping me. I mean, expressing myself was very therapeutic, of course. It was helpful, but it wasn't helping me in the long run like I needed it to. I had a lot of internal things that I was dealing with that I needed to work on myself, and so eventually I let God heal those things within me, and I went on a completely different path, a more natural path, as far as meditating and praying and really just doing my best to tackle all of my issues. So I really just want to talk about mental health a little bit more, because there are so many people that actually suffer from mental health. In fact, there is 1 in 5 adults that experience mental health. Not saying that they have a severe mental health disorder, but experience or have the symptoms of mental health as far as anxiety or depression goes. Nearly 1 in 25 adults in America alone suffer from a serious mental illness. And that could be clinical depression, or that could be schizophrenia. You never know, bipolar disorder. There are so many out there. I'm not going to go into specifics on which each of them are. If you want to know more, please do your research on it. It'd be beneficial for you. But whatever you are suffering with, or if you know someone who's suffering with these things, it's probably a good idea to look into it so you understand what this person is going through, how they feel on a daily basis, or what you can do to help them to ease this experience for them, because it is not a fun journey at all when you are dealing with any of the sort. For me, when it came to anxiety, one of the biggest indicators I've had with anxiety was that I was just anxious in the space that I was. It was like an indication that it was time for me to get out of the space that I was in, as far as college and just the environment. It was like my soul was ready to move and I was staying stuck. So that's why I suffer with anxiety. But the social anxiety, that was more of just deep-rooted insecurities that I had, that I felt where like I wore them on my face, or I wore them like you could see my insecurities and flaws. And so I had social anxiety because of that, because I felt like everybody can see the worst things about me, although they couldn't. In my head they could. And I'll be honest, I'm an empath, and so I pick up people's emotions very easily, and I'm really good at reading people, so I could see a lot of people's insecurities and flaws and all of these things. And still to this day, it's something that kind of annoys me, because I won't be like looking or trying to read people on purpose, but it's something that I just naturally can do. And so because I could read people, I thought people could read me just as well. So that's why I had social anxiety, and I felt like, oh man, like I see all these things about people, but yet can they see it about me? So I struggled with the social anxiety for a very long time. But eventually, again, I went on a healing journey for pretty much all of 2020 and a little bit of 2019 and some of this year. And that's what ultimately helped me to get over depression, addiction, and anxiety. So it was a lot, but it was very much worth it. So some things that you guys should know about mental health is sadness and depression are signs of, greater mental health disorders. Sometimes it's not just, although clinical depression is a real thing, and we all experience sadness at least sometimes in our lives, right? But it could be an indication that you might be suffering for something else, something deeper than that. But just also know that they are normal, okay? And they are not signs of weaknesses. So know that if you do get depressed or sad, then you could be completely normal. But if it's something that's happening more persistently and you're having it a lot, then you may want to look into it and see, like, why am I feeling this way all the time? Or why is this happening all the time? Like, it could be a seasonal depression thing where when the winter comes around, you get really sad during that time, or you get really down and you feel like you don't have enough energy, or you get really depressed and you don't want to do as much during the winter as you do during summer, So you just kind of want to look into things, because you never know. Mental health, again, is such a wide range of things that you could be suffering from something and not even realize it. And that's actually what happens, is there's so many people on this planet that suffer from mental health illnesses, but have no idea that they are, because it's kind of been something that a lot of people, especially in the African American community, tend to push off and not acknowledge as a real thing. I grew up Black, and at one point in my life, I was trying to tell my parents that I was depressed, and they didn't really understand that until later on. And then when I was getting counseling, they got counseling as well, and that helped them to understand me a little bit better. But you just never know. Some other things is feeling sad is not always a bad thing. Again, when it comes to sadness, it's not like we all feel that. It's just an emotion at the end of the day, just like happiness is an emotion. So if you're feeling sad, just know that it probably just means you're feeling sad because you're reacting to a situation or something that disappointed you or something that hurt your feelings, and that's completely okay. It's a natural thing. So if it's just sadness, then I wouldn't really look into it. What I was trying to say earlier is, like, if you're feeling depressed and sadness on a regularly basis, then that's probably something, an indication that you're dealing with some type of mental disorder. And again, I'm not trying to speak that into existence on you or saying that's true. To each its own. Again, by God's grace and mercy, you're not dealing with any type of form of mental illness. But I know when I was going through sadness, depression, it was linked to depression, clinical depression, but also anxiety. And I didn't even realize that. Like, I would get sad because I couldn't just do normal things like going into the store by myself. Like, it was just a rough time. But other things to know about mental health, that it's okay to talk about it. All right, it is okay to talk about what you're struggling with and what you're going through, especially if you're having suicidal thoughts. You should 100% talk to someone about that, because that is, I'm not going to say it's not normal, but it is something that needs to be expressed, because you never know what could happen if you don't. But also, if you do, you may get the help that you need to stop feeling that way, or stop feeling like you want to do these things to yourself. And again, I think I've expressed this in this podcast, but I definitely suffered from a season of suicidal thoughts. And for me, spiritually, I knew it was a spirit, so I didn't really entertain it for very long. But also acknowledging that some people don't, have that perspective or that perception, and that's 100% okay. that just means you need to talk to someone about it and do whatever you can to not feel that way. I know it sounds easier said than done, but like literally, you're so worth it. You are so worth it. Your life matters. So don't ever feel like you need to escape this planet by taking your own life, or don't ever make, a decision based off of emotion anyway, especially something that intense, because suicide is no joke. Again, I 100% think you should express it. Be careful if you express it to as well, though. I will acknowledge that. Don't tell everybody about it, but if you have somebody that you truly trust and you can talk to them about it, I would 100% talk to them and let them know how you're feeling. And then maybe the next step is you guys going to get help together, or maybe they can help you find someone to talk to as far as like a counselor, therapist or something, or maybe they could be your therapist. Hey, I don't know your relationship with the person, or if you know someone who is struggling with suicidal thoughts or anything of the sort. The other thing as far as suicidal thoughts goes, if you're feeling suicidal, what helped me during that time was what I was listening to at nighttime. So at nighttime, I would put on very uplifting gospel music, or sometimes I would listen to sermons as I was sleeping, and I would let these things just kind of sink into my subconscious mind and just let my mind absorb all of this positive light, just love and light as I was sleeping. And then later on, I found that these things kind of, took root, and I began to actually believe what I was hearing as I was sleeping. So that's a great way to kind of reprogram your mind and help you to combat suicidal thoughts, because it can be very hard when you are having suicidal thoughts. You really don't want to do things, and just existing and doing the bare minimum is hard. And so sometimes you do have to help yourself in that way. I know that's what helped me, as well as talking to people and expressing. And when I say people, I mean counseling, my family, of course. But that helped me to kind of overcome that, as well as prayer. And then later on, healing, as far as healing goes, like meditating, praying, and just doing what I could to realize that I am worth it, and seeing myself through God's eyes was very helpful. Those are some things that I feel that people should know about mental health. Also, just some helpful things to kind of, help other people who are struggling with mental health issues or just disorders in any way. One thing I would say, and I've said it already in this podcast, but educate yourself and educate people around you about mental health disorders and illnesses on anyone. So if you know someone in your life who suffers from it, and you have family, you should educate your family so that they can further understand that person. For example, let's say someone in your church suffers from some type of mental illness. It should be upon you to kind of understand that person. You mean you're not obligated to, of course, but personally, I would figure out not figure out, but if I know they are struggling with something or they're dealing with a mental health disorder, then I would do my best to, educate myself on that and learn. That way I can help them, and if they ever need help or if something ever comes up, I'll know what to do. And then I would further that by educating those around me so they are just as aware as I am. And it just makes for a very safe environment for that person, and so that they can thrive and be comfortable, because ultimately people who are suffering from mental health issues, they struggle with thriving, right? They struggle with doing sometimes the bare minimum, or they struggle with having regular and normal lives, because it's the stuff that affects their minds and their behavior and just their attention and everything else that goes along with it. So we have to be very mindful of that and do what we can to make these environments safe for them, and so that they can thrive and do well. Also, I would say to share, just be honest. Share your examples and life stories with people. Just be honest with them. If you've suffered with a form of mental health or depression or sadness, people, obviously you don't want to make it about yourself, but when you're talking to people, it's good to relate to them. And sometimes that's a good way to relate to someone who is suffering, because then they'll know hey, I'm not in this alone. And sometimes those people with depression, they feel like they might be the only person on the planet that are depressed, or somebody who is suffering from anxiety. It's good to know that there are other people who have suffered from it, who do suffer from it. So I would definitely say share whatever your experiences are with mental health or mental disorders or illnesses, or if you have people in your life who also have similar things are going on, then you could do that. Next, for people who are suffering with mental health, express it. Okay, explain your mental health and explain your symptoms and everything that goes along with it. So if you're a person who suffers with anxiety, it is okay to explain that. And sometimes, I know for me it was social anxiety, so I couldn't really tell people. Like, I used to struggle in classes, like literally, because I didn't know how to even tell my teachers I had social anxiety, let alone the person next to me. And so I used to be like super weird. But what helped me was emailing. Okay, what helped me was texting and being able to communicate via the internet, right? And I was able to do my best communicating that way, but also getting to a space where I was comfortable enough to, physically talk to someone and be like, all right, well, this is why I'm this way or this way or that way. And that helped me in college a lot, because when I tell you, there was times where I was suffering in class, and my anxiety was like physical anxiety as well. So I'd be sweating, shivering, shaking, like just very physically uncomfortable. So that's what helped me, was the expression and explaining my mental health and the symptoms that come with it. What else? I guess other tips would be to support others with mental health. If you know, again, others that suffer with it, you want to create a safe environment for them. So support them the best that you can, whether that be to literally help them or just talk to them. Because sometimes people really just need, a shoulder to lean on, or a shoulder to cry on, or somebody who can at least lend their ears, or, their time. Just do something, And finally, the best thing I can say, or not say, but tip that I can give, is for those people who have suffered with anxiety or depression or any mental illness out there, share your stories on how you overcame them. How did you overcome it? How did you get past it? What were the hurdles, the things that stopped you and prevent you or kept you going? Those are the things that people need to hear, because it gives them hope on how they may get there that day or one day. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So I've already kind of explained my mental health journey, but basically, as a teen, I was in a very dark space. I suffered from a lot of different things. I felt worthless in my teens, for sure. Again, it was a lot that happened to me as in my teens, as far as traumatic experience goes. Well, not in my teens, but as a result. That's just when it just manifested to the point where I couldn't really handle it. But overcoming it was its own journey. Again, that involved me personally having to kind of surrender to God and realize that it was something that I couldn't handle on my own. I had dealt with these things for literally a decade of my life, and I realized, hey, God, you're the only one that's going to be able to help me deal with this issue or deal with these issues. If I'm going to have any ounce or of a normal life, I'm going to need your help. And that's where I started, was with prayer. Then it became, I was writing letters to God and asking him to help me in every way possible. Literally everything that I suffered with, everything that I was holding on to, I was asking God to help me, to deliver me from certain things as far as addiction goes. But when it came to the mental health side of things, I was asking God to actually bring joy and replace depression with joy. And when it came to my anxiety, I was asking God to help build my confidence and to help me to be able to speak to people more and to be comfortable in my own skin, so I would be able to speak to people. And so I was just, doing my best. And obviously during the time I was not in the right headspace to really believe what I was writing. But here's the thing. God hears his children. He hears us. So whatever we're praying, don't think it's falling on deaf ears, because it's not. Everything that you pray, God hears you. And if the prayer is right, not saying there's a right or wrong prayer, but if it's right, then God's gonna honor it, and it's gonna come true. Simple as that. It's like making a wish. 1, 2, 3. But basically, I wrote to God, prayed, meditated for a season. It was a season of healing, and eventually one day I woke up. I'm not gonna say within 6 months. It was probably a year. I woke up and everything was different. Literally woke up and I started crying because I was alive, and that's the day that I knew a shift changed, and God, heard my cry and answered my prayer. I could go more in deep with the mental health stuff, but I don't want to, bring too much attention to it because I'm not in that headspace anymore. So it's kind of hard to go back there. You know, I can acknowledge it, of course, but it's hard to go real deep back into that bag, because that bag is now sealed up, and it is where it is in time, and I want to leave it there. But you know, that's my journey with mental health. Obviously there's some more stuff, but again, I just really don't want to open that can of worms. But to anybody that is suffering from mental health, seriously, you know, you are your own hero sometimes, and by that I just mean you have to really take your life into your own hands and learn when to move and when not to move, as far as what can you do to better yourself, or what can you do to help yourself. If you know you suffer from something, then and you feel like you need to get help for it, do that. You know, don't second guess it. If you suffer from any disorder or illness, then do what you can to help yourself move on from it. You know, it's different when you sit there and suffer through it. And I spent like 10 years of my life just sitting through depression, and sitting through anxiety, and sitting through social anxiety, and sitting through PTSD, and did nothing about it. And my life didn't get better, for sure. It got sometimes worse. But when I really took my life into my own hands, as far as taking command of my life, as far like literally, you know, making the conscious choice to do better, or not literally do better, I mean, but to better myself and heal myself and come to God and surrender myself, that's when a real healing and change came for me. And these issues that I was dealing with, they started just to drop away and fly away. And eventually, again, I woke up and everything was different. And I'm not saying that's how it's going to happen for you, because everyone's journey is different. Everyone's story is different. But however it does happen for you, you'll know it. You'll know it. But yeah, do what you can to get help. For those who don't suffer with mental health, please be very mindful of those that do, and understand that they are human too. You know, they feel, and just like us, just like you and me. Although I don't suffer from mental health anymore, I have, and so I understand that struggle and that journey, and therefore my heart goes out to anyone who does suffer from anything, because it's rough. And again, people, well, not again, but I don't think I mentioned this, but people's actions will sometimes reflect their mental health disorders. So this is why we should be easy on people and not too hard on certain people. So I came across this great picture by the Mental Health Foundation, and they put out this picture that says WAIT, right? It's an acronym, and I'm going to read to you what each thing stands for. So it says suicide prevention advice, WAIT. W stands for watch out. Watch out for signs of distress and changes in behavior. A says ask, are you having suicidal thoughts? I stands for it will pass. Assure your loved one or your loved ones that with their help, their suicidal feelings and thoughts will pass in time. And T, talk to others. Encourage your loved ones or those who are suffering from suicidal thoughts to seek help from a, counselor or a professional, or even your peers or those around you. And I completely agree with everything on this infographic. I think it's very important that we take suicidal thoughts and other mental health issues very serious, especially with the younger children. I mean, I've already expressed this, but they are the future, and their mental health, it's tried literally every day, whether you realize it or not, whether it's by gaslighting or the things in their environment or the people that they're around. So you just got to be careful and mindful of everybody, because you never know what people are picking up on daily, especially with kids in school and the internet. The internet is a pool of mixed vibrations, and trust me, there are a lot of negative ones on there. So you never know what a person or a child is picking up on. So you got to be very mindful and cautious with certain people, and be easy on them, be kind. At the end of the day, there's not one person on this planet that doesn't need kindness and love, right? Even if they put on the front like they don't. Trust me, love, it's important, and those who lack it, they feel it for sure. By that I mean they feel everything else but it. But no shade or nothing like that. the whole point is we have to take mental health very serious, especially those who are having suicidal thoughts, because that it's real for them. Whatever is going on in their reality or in their world, it's affecting them to the point where they feel like they don't want to live on this planet anymore, and that should be taken serious. What is triggering this response? And I had to ask myself this back in the day, because I've been there. I've definitely 100% been there. I've expressed that, and I've been very transparent on this podcast with you guys about my struggles with depression and anxiety and just all of that. And although it's a lot to deal with, it's 100% a lot. It should be taken serious, and every individual needs to be handled differently. And by that, I don't really mean handled, but some person may require that they need someone to talk to about suicide or social anxiety or just anything that they're going through daily. Another person may be weekly. Another person may need an outlet or something that they can do when they feel this way. So again, everybody's different, to each its own, and that's completely okay. But nevertheless, it should be taken 100% serious. And anybody who is expressing suicidal behavior or thoughts, or even suffering from any other mental health disability, at the end of the day, they should be treated with respect, kindness, and fairness. They should be shown more love than hate, and be very cautious, because you never know who is suffering from a mental health disorder or just anything. Like, you never know. So you got to be nice to people. You just got to be. That's kind of all I have to say on this topic. There's so much more we could touch on and say, but I want to keep it somewhat light, because it is kind of a hard topic for me personally to speak about, because it's very, very close. And please forgive me if I somewhat seem detached from this topic and the way I'm speaking or communicating with it. It's very hard for me to personally throw myself back into that mindset when I've worked so very hard to get out of it. And acknowledging the past, of course, I'm grateful for that time, and I can see it from a neutral perspective. But when I was in it, it was literally hell. And so, I just wish healing on anybody who's dealing with any mental health disorder or any disability, or anybody who is just suffering from depression, anxiety, anything, because it's very hard. It's very hard. The last thing you want to do is suffer, right? Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to be on this planet and not want to be here. So Godspeed to anybody that is suffering. The last thing I can say is prayer is your best friend. God is your best friend. He will get you through anything and everything if you surrender it to Him, if you trust in Him and His process. Know that whatever you are going through, it is for a reason. You may not understand that reason while it's occurring and happening around you, but one day you can look back on it and be like, whoa, I was this way, but now I'm this way. Or I suffer from this, but God helped me to overcome it. And that's what it's about, overcoming things and growing and getting better as time goes on. Although acknowledging that there are some disabilities that are harder than others, and not every disability can be overcome. And I completely understand that. But just know it doesn't define you. It doesn't make you who you are. It's just something that is a part of you, or something that you have to deal with. But it doesn't have to be your identity or your life, or even drive you. Just be cautious in life with others, especially others, with yourself, of course, but with those around you. Because again, for me personally, that was one thing that I was very, very aware of, is I knew that, if I'm suffering from anxiety, there's got to be countless of other people suffering from it as well. There's got to be people, who are suffering from depression as well. And again, you really never know. You really never know. Sometimes it could be the happiest people who are suffering from depression, because they want you to think they're happy. In reality, they aren't. So just be cautious and mindful of those around you, and know that mental health is something that should be taken 100% serious. If somebody expresses something to you, or someone who is suffering from these things, be a helpful hand. Lend your time, comfort, whatever. Just be there if they need you. And even if they don't need you, always check up on your friends, your family, those who suffer. If you have a person in your life who has been sad in the past, and who often gets sad, or has a cycle of time where they seasonal depression is a real thing. Come around to the winter time, and people are going to be down. And if you aren't, or even if you are, it never hurts to help someone else. Maybe you guys can become buddies and text and whatnot and keep each other up. And sometimes that's what anybody needs, is just someone there to talk to them and reassure them that everything is going to be okay. So yeah, that's all I have to say about all of this. God bless anybody out there that is suffering from mental health issues or disorders or disabilities. It's going to be okay. I honestly believe that, and you should too. God got you. God got us all. He's helped me. He's moved me out of both depression and anxiety and even PTSD, because that was really handicapping at the end of the day, dealing with all of that. So if he can do it for me, I know he can do it for you. For those who have more severe issues and problems, it will eventually get better. And that's where us, as the people who have kind of overcame, or not even overcame, but us that aren't suffering from these issues or these things, that's where we come in, because we can pray, or we can be a guiding light in those people's lives to help them get to a space where they can have a sound mind, or whatever the case may be. You just never know. Just be praying for those around you, for those that you know may be suffering. God hears those prayers. He will honor those prayers, and he will move on their lives and even in yours. That's all I have to say. You guys be blessed.